All right. Can everyone hear me? You can go ahead and respond in our chat. You can put your thumbs up. I'd love to see everyone's faces. So if we can turn our cameras on, that's always a big win for us. Okay, thank you to those responding in the chat. All right. Okay, sounds good. Well, welcome in everyone. Good afternoon to those based in the US and good evening to those in Bangladesh. Thank you for joining. We have a very amazing session today. First of all, thank you for registering for the HerWILL Cutting Edge Technology Workshop Series. We have an outstanding workshop series planned for you guys. We have partnered with amazing universities across the United States, from universities such as Rochester, MIT, and of course, our close friend and partner here in Georgia, the AI Institute for Optimization in Georgia Tech. So to get right into it, the goal of this workshop is to introduce you all to new technology as it comes in. This is AI, cybersecurity, data science, all of these extremely necessary topics to learn. We have brought in leading experts to teach these to you guys. Now, in order to be respectful to everyone who's investing their time and energy into making these workshops happen, we have a couple of rules that I want to bring to the group. First of all, cameras are required. We'd like to see your faces. We want to interact with you guys. We have amazing interactive sessions planned, and that is in part due to you guys turning your cameras on and participating when it's necessary. Second of all, we're asking you to remain unmuted unless we choose to allow you guys to unmute. So please keep your mute on, keep your microphone turned off. We're focused on the speakers who came here to present. You guys are encouraged to interact in the chat box. When the time comes for you to speak, we will allow you guys to speak. But for right now, let's just focus on the speakers. And finally, we do ask that you fill out the forms that we send in the chat. We have our moderators participating in from our HerWILL team to make sure that anything that's posted on the screen will also be sent to the chat. And we just hope that you guys continue to collaborate with us. So without further ado, we're going to get started. I'm going to do a very brief introduction of our speaker today because I know he will do a more thorough introduction when he starts. We have the absolute pleasure of introducing Dr. Kevin Dalmeijer. He is a partner and senior research associate at Georgia Tech, as well as managing director of the AI Institute for Optimization. Now, this is an outstanding organization. He's going to tell you guys all about it. So I'd like to direct your attention towards Kevin.
Okay, thank you so much, Yasmina. Let me share my screen and then we'll get going. Yes, I think that should work for everybody. So yeah, indeed, my name is Kevin. I'm the managing director of the AI Institute for Advanced Optimization. And today, as part of the HerWILL Cutting Edge Technology Workshop, I really want to talk about AI for optimization and AI for engineering, which, well, I hope you'll agree is a very interesting topic. A little bit about myself. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I did my studies there in econometrics and in management science. And then I decided to specialize really in optimization. At some point, I moved to Atlanta really to, well, have the opportunity to work on these big problems in optimization, in engineering, and artificial intelligence. Right now, I'm at Georgia Tech, where I'm a researcher, and I'm also a project manager for this AI institute that I'll tell you all about, obviously. So in terms of research, I really like working on these big systems and try to make them better. So one of those is mobility, for example. How do you make public transit better such that people have better access to it and people actually like using it instead of just driving their cars? I also work with Chungye, for example, who's one of the students who's here today as well, on logistics systems. For example, if you had self-driving trucks, what would you actually do with them? So because not everybody knows optimization, I'll tell you very briefly what it is, and we'll go into more detail later. But it basically means doing things as well as possible. So for example, find the best route, which a phone can do nowadays. But you can also think about finding the best chip design for a computer chip. Or if you're more in the data science area, you could think about finding the best cluster for the data that you have. So optimization is just doing things as well as you can. And we'll talk a lot about that and the interaction of optimization with AI today. So as managing director, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of this institute I will talk about, which means we have more than 30 projects going on, and my job is to make sure that they are happening and that everybody has everything they need to make this research happen. So I'm not here alone today. I brought some amazing researchers ranging from master students to PhD students, postdocs. You'll get to meet them and they can talk about themselves in more detail. So I'll just leave it by the names at this point. We have Rabab, we have Rosemary, we have Changye, Hongxiao, and Shikar, all here today to, well, tell you about their research, help you think about AI. And I think that's going to be very, very interactive and very interesting. At least that's the goal. So speaking of goals, the goals that I've set for today, which I think should be doable, but it's going to take some participation from your end. First of all, I want you to get to know AI4OPT, this institute, and the researchers. Second, I want you to understand how AI and optimization are used to address challenges in energy, supply chain, manufacturing, really the big engineering problems that we have. Then we'll go a little bit more into depth, and we'll talk about technology that you don't really hear a lot about yet, but is going to be extremely important and is really at the cutting edge of what we're doing today. So this is optimization proxies, for example. And at the end of this session, you'll be able to explain what they are and why they work and what they are used for. And finally, what we will do is really analyze opportunities and challenges of AI in engineering applications. So we are now at a point, or we're going towards a point, where you don't have to be an expert in AI to use AI. There's room for people beyond the scientists who tinker and do all the math and really do all the detailed mathematics behind it. If you know how to use these tools and how to apply them, and you can manage that kind of things and think about these things, there's a big role for that as well. So I want to emphasize that. And what I would like to end with today is really invite you to think about the opportunities that there are. If you understand what the tools do, that's like the biggest important part to figure out what's next. So those are the goals we set. How I'd like to reach those goals is we have 5 different parts, and we'll see how it goes. We can be a little bit flexible, of course. We'll start with just me presenting a little bit about AI4OPT, the Institute, and also AI for engineering. Why you should care, what is the cutting edge, what are we doing here, why is this interesting, those kind of questions. Then we'll do the breakouts with the research team that I brought today, and you'll get to meet them. You'll get to ask them questions. What do you do? Why? Isn't that dangerous? Those kind of questions. After you get a little bit more comfortable with those research topics, we'll all come back and I'll tell you a little bit more about some of these like very recent tools and applications of these tools. After we do that, I propose we do another longer breakout session where you get to prepare your own research pitch. So if you understand these new tools, I'm going to challenge you as a group or as multiple groups to find a nice application, a challenge, an engineering problem that has not been solved yet, and propose how AI could help in this area. And you'll be able to do that because we go over all the tools necessary to do so. We'll come back and we'll do these 1-minute pitches so we can see what all the groups came up with and we can discuss them a little bit. Then at the end, we'll do a quick conclusion, a wrap up, just what we've learned today and where we are. So that's the plan. If you have questions at any point, well, my team can tell you I'm terrible at multitasking. So I propose you throw them in the chat, and then Yasmina or anybody from the HerWILL team can just interrupt me whenever they find convenient, and we'll go over some of these questions. Okay, so without further ado, part 1. So let me tell you about this institute that I work for, the AI Institute for Advances in Optimization. So this is really one of the institutes that is founded by the US government. So the US government has been funding tremendously in AI because they see this is strategically an important area, and they want to invest in this. They want to educate people in AI. They want to do research in AI. And what you really see is that all these research institutes have different focuses. So what we do is AI for engineering, but you have people who do AI for climate, AI for healthcare, AI for education. All these research institutes have different topics. And it really shows you that the US, and I think the US is not unique, like many countries in the world, are serious about AI and about investing in AI and making a difference with AI. So this one that I'm in is led by Georgia Tech, and it's together with universities in California, in Texas, and also in Georgia as well. Yeah, so this is where we are. This is where I am right now, and most of my team is as well. So we're on the 12th floor of this building, and I'm showing you this for two reasons. First of all, that the universities are serious about AI as well. They put us in this building so we have different people with different backgrounds, different expertise who can work on these big challenges together. The second one is if you recognize this building because you're in the area, shoot me an email and I'll give you a short tour. We have the tallest spiral staircase in the world on the right, so that's always fun to see. So if people ask me, what do you do in terms of research? This is the official answer that it's long, but I'd like to read it to you. AI4OPT is there to revolutionize decision-making at massive scales by fusing AI and mathematical optimization into intelligent systems that will achieve breakthroughs that the two fields cannot achieve independently. Or the short version, as I prefer, we do AI for engineering. That's essentially what we do, and that's cross-cutting in different fields. So there are a lot of interesting problems in engineering. We focus on three of I think, one of the biggest challenges for which AI makes a lot of sense. The first of all is energy. So how do you operate a power grid? Well, we've had power for quite a while, so this is something you would think we're good at. But it used to be that power grids were way more predictable than they are nowadays. They used to be powered by coal, which is very predictable. You can easily turn them on and off. People were more predictable. But nowadays, we are dealing with solar energy, with wind energy. If a couple of clouds come over, suddenly the whole system looks different. We have people who charge their electric cars. We have people who have solar panels at home. So all of this introduces a lot of uncertainty in the system and changes, a variability that you need to work with in some way. So going beyond how we traditionally dealt with this, dealing with this uncertainty, with the dynamics, with responding to the data, that's where AI comes in. That's where AI is strong in dealing with this kind of data. So that's where AI makes sense in this area. Second, we look into supply chains. So supply chains make sure that if you order something that it shows up at your house, right? And before the pandemic, at least as far as I was aware, nobody was talking about supply chains. If you order something, it arrives, right? You just assume that everything works. And then after the pandemic, we realized that, well, actually, there can be a lot of problems here. Things can stop working. And what we saw is that if you just optimize for efficiency, that's nice, but it's very susceptible to breaking down. So what we're doing now is we try to make these supply chains more resilient. So if a delivery is late, if a factory closes, if there's a congestion at the port, how do we set up our supply chains in such a way that not everything breaks down? How do we make systems that if something changes, we can adapt and we know what to do, we know how to respond? How do we deal with that kind of data? And that's where AI comes in the supply chain area. Third, one area that's very big for us is AI for manufacturing. In particular, we work with Intel, for example, on how to manufacture the latest generation of computer chips. Well, similar issues, right? These problems are very big. These problems are very dynamic in the sense that deliveries can be late, demands can be higher or lower. And computer chips are very much important to many of the economies. So producing this is important. Responding to the changes around us is not necessarily obvious. And that's where AI for engineering comes in. And this is the short pitch. We'll go into a lot of that, of how that actually works in part, one of the later parts, part 3, I believe. So, well, what did we do before? What we did before is optimization. That's what I do, right? We would build these optimization models, and then you put in the problem and you get the output. So you put in the distances and it gives you the shortest path. You put in the state of your power grid and it tells you which generators to turn on or off. Optimization models are great. They've saved us billions of dollars worldwide in efficiency and doing things better. But there's one big problem that we're running into right now, and that's that they're just too slow. You can press the button, and sometimes for these problems, they're so big that it will take days or hours or weeks to get a good solution. And that just doesn't work. What we're looking for is things to be real time. Imagine that you are a planner and you're trying to manage a supply chain or a manufacturing plant. And one of your as you can see, you're on the phone. One of your suppliers calls and says, sorry, we're going to deliver 2 weeks late. What do? Well, right now, what many companies do is they go to their optimization model, they ask for a new solution, and it takes like 3 hours to get it. And it may or may not work in practice. And what we are trying to do is really use AI to get you a solution now, immediately, that you can immediately respond with, and then you can interact with the system. So you can ask it, why don't we do this? Or maybe this is an option. Or can we go this way if I adjust the planning? So we want to make tools for people to use that are more responsive and that can actually do these things quicker and respond to data and be more resilient. So that's what we're trying to do. So, and how we do that, fusing AI and optimization. Optimization, they also call it operations research sometimes. You build your model, you feed it the data, you press the button, you wait, and you get a solution at some point, hopefully. With AI and data science and machine learning, it's very much based on the data. You start from the data and you see what you can learn from it and how you can respond to things and what you can learn from it. And you can imagine that combining these tools makes sense, where on one hand, we benefit from having models and having best or optimal solutions. And on the other hand, we benefit from this responsiveness and the data that we actually get that we can leverage. So we'll go into a lot of that about this a little bit later. How we do it at the Institute, how we chose to approach this is we basically have 3 pillars. One is the areas that we care about. We're very interested in supply chains, manufacturing, like I said, energy systems. We haven't even talked about food systems yet, but we do that too. And then on the other hand, we have the science going on. So on the left, you see these methodological thrusts, which are basically research teams in specific areas. You may recognize reinforcement learning, for example. We have people working on next generation solvers, so better optimization solvers powered by AI. All these things about real-time decision-making that I showed you just now, they fall under end-to-end learning and optimization. Then the third pillar that we have is a number of companies that we work with. And the reason we work with these companies is because they have the problems, right? They know what the challenges are. So in an ideal project, we work with a company, we understand from them what the problem is. Then we do the science to make progress. And at the end of the day, we help the companies implement the changes that we propose. So for example, I was lucky to, we did a small trip to Alabama to Southern Company, where we were at the operating center. So where all the people who are making decisions about the power grid, and they're taking calls and they're updating things and looking at the weather. And that's where we learned how these things operate, what is important to them. We got to ask them, like, what are the problems you have? What do you want to optimize? And then we go back, we do the science, and then we try to make progress and put it back into these companies. So that's very much how we want to operate as an institute. So maybe this, I don't know what is in the chat, but I do see there are questions. Jasmina, is there anything relevant at this point?
We do have one really interesting question from Noor. They say, how can we effectively optimize the LLMs and generative models to run on handheld devices to democratize AI?
Got it. Okay, great. I mean, ChatGPT and LLMs had to come up at some point, right? So what I'm not an expert in those, frankly. What I want to show today is really some of the other sides of AI that are also very interesting and I think are also going to make a big difference. I don't want to speculate about optimizing LLMs. I do agree that it's a super important point to make this kind of technology like available to everybody. And that's in line with what we try to do, right? We try to look at big societal problems and we try to solve them, and we try to work with partners who can actually implement these things. But I don't want to speculate about LLMs because it's not what I do. But it's a very good question. Thank you. Okay, then let's move on. I appreciate it. If you have good questions, throw them in the chat. In the meantime, I do want to mention is we don't just do research. Obviously, these centers are set up not just to do research there, but also to help lift people up and get people into AI and optimization and help with this revolution. And one of the things we do in education is we want to create longitudinal pathways for AI engineering. We work with high school students, graduates, we work with teachers, etc. I think the partnership with HerWILL obviously stands out. We were very lucky to work with the HerWILL team, with Farhana for quite a while. I think for me, the Datathon in 2022 stands out, which was an amazing event. And yeah, it was an amazing event. Some of our professors, like this is Professor Alper Atamturk, very famous professor from UC Berkeley, are participating in these events to interact with you all, right? Here's a picture. Yasmina is there, Farhana is there, where we're together at one of these conferences, really explaining to everybody. It's not just about research, it's also about getting people involved. So this is something that's very important to me and to us. We have other projects as well. We do the CEF Bonnet camps. If you're in high school, this might be interesting to you as well. These are summer programming camps. We do them at Georgia Tech, we do them at Berkeley, we do them online nowadays as well. We'll announce them in a month or so. And really, we try to take people from just basic programming, for loops, if statements, to at a point where you can do deep learning. And like I said before, there's room for people to work on like the details of AI, but there's also room for people who know how to use the tools. You don't need to know all the details anymore to make a difference here. Oh yeah, here you have the director for the CEF Bonnet camps. He likes to dress up as Nick Fury. I just like showing that picture. And this is one of the projects that some people in high school did. So this is Cadence project, for example, and he had 98% accuracy on recognizing some of his classmates with his neural network. So there's fun stuff going on there, right? Without knowing all the tensors and stuff behind it. We also work with faculty. So we try to teach the teachers at schools all around the US to really help them start programs at their own school to teach more people. The photo in the bottom right, you see this is where Farhana actually spoke, gave a seminar or a guest lecture in this series that was very well received, obviously. So yeah, a whole bunch of things. So I'm going to recap, then I'm going to ask Yasmina if there's any more questions in the chat before we move on to the next part. But if I can recap part one, the US has invested heavily in AI. One of the things they did is these 25 AI institutes all over the place. Our institute really focuses on AI for engineering. And I hope at least I got you interested in, and that it makes sense to do this for power systems, supply chains, manufacturing. And a little bit later, we'll go into a lot of detail about how this actually works and how you actually do this. And I also want to stress, and I always try to stress this, that research and education are very both important to us as an institute. We don't just want to do research and write papers. No, we want to get things done. We want to get people with us, and we want to get people to join us in making a difference with AI. So before we move on, I'm going to check quickly if there's any questions that I can answer at this point.
I don't think there's any questions in the chat right now.
Excellent. That means I was clear.
Yes.
And I'm going to give the word to you. So part two. I think part two is going to be fun. So I call this part Meet the Researchers. Like I said, I brought an amazing team of researchers in very diverse areas. I'm going to give you 10 minutes in these breakout rooms. And your mission is to really ask questions and figure out what they do and why they do. Imagine you can ask about, well, what kind of topic do they work on? Why? Who cares? What kind of AI or optimization do they use? What kind of training or what kind of other people do they work with instead of just systems engineers, for example? So I'm going to give you the opportunity to go in these break rooms, talk to these people, see what you can learn. And after that, we're going to go back to really talk about the tools, and we'll go into depth on these power systems and such and how you use these tools in these contexts. So if that's all good, then I'm going to ask the HerWILL team to make the breakouts happen.
Gotcha. So I'll be stepping in, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and pause our recording. Okay. Kevin, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
I'm always ready. Okay, thank you everybody for participating. I hopped a little bit between the rooms and I saw very different discussions going on, talking about the research that we're doing. I saw people asking about how do I get an AI job? What kind of courses do I need to take? I saw people, there were very good questions, so I appreciate that. One question that I also really liked, and I think I happened to hop into the room when Sohan asked it. He also put it in the chat, which is maybe the most important question for our institute, right? I claim that combining AI and optimization makes sense, but does it? I'm paraphrasing, obviously. So what are the complementary strengths and why does it make sense to combine these two? Well, that's such a great question that we have a whole part that's just going to talk about that. So without further ado, part 3. In this part, I really want to tell you about some of the tools that you may not be familiar with. I think optimization proxies is the most important one, and we'll go over some of the other techniques as well. And this is really an idea that is not that old, and really in the last couple of years, we see the main benefits of this arising. So this is as cutting edge as you get it. And I think if you look 10 years from now, this is going to be one of the most important techniques in AI for engineering. And then we'll go back to these applications of energy, supply chains, and manufacturing. And what I did there is actually I just stole a bunch of slides from my colleagues that I would present to other scientists. So I didn't make them easier. I think after we talk about these techniques, you should be able to get what's going on there. So we'll see if I do a good job explaining that. So let's move on. First of all, optimization. Like I said, that's what I do. So, and that's what people may be less familiar with compared to AI, because the whole workshop is about AI. Solving an optimization problem goes like this usually. First, you specify an objective in words and in math. Then you specify constraints, so everything it has to satisfy. You implement this optimization model. You put the data in, and then you press the button and you let some optimization solver solve the model for you. And typically you just use external software, unless you were really deep in the woods, but typically you just use external software. So let's do an example. Shortest path, just like we said at the beginning. Say I have this graph and I want to find the shortest path from A to F. And it's already marked in blue, right? You go from A to C, from C to E, etc. You might think this is a childish problem that you never have, but you can imagine that if you have thousands of nodes, this is actually a very tricky problem to solve, and it takes more effort. Okay, our 5 steps. Step 1, what is the objective? Well, it's in the name, find the shortest path. Step 2, what are the constraints? Well, it has to start at the start, it has to end at the end, and it needs to be a path. You cannot just teleport. You cannot just do other weird stuff. You just have to follow a path. This sounds very trivial, but this is essentially what it's like. If you put this into math, and you don't have to understand this, but I just want to give you a sense of what that looks like, it could look like something like this, where literally we just wrote down with symbols the constraints that we just said. But the subject 2, the 3 lines are literally that. Start at the beginning, end at the end, create a path. Step 3, I like implementing these things in Python, which is the language you can use for this. You can use whatever you want, C++, Java, your pick. This is my code. And as you can see, so you would have to learn how to do this, of course, but you recognize, for example, the variables X, they also appear in this code. I basically just write down this mathematical model in code. Again, you don't have to understand how to read this. Also, close observers might notice that I just cheated a bit and asked ChatGPT to do this for me. It was almost correct. I had to fix a little thing. Next, we put in the distances. So in this case, this is my distance matrix. So for example, from A to C, it has length 2. This is all the information that I put in. And then I call my external solver. In this case, I decided to use Gurobi, but there are others to solve it. And it prints out a whole bunch of stuff. So at the beginning, it says, this is the Gurobi optimizer. Okay, great. It says what kind of computer I have, how big my problem is. And then at the end, it solves it. And it says, optimal solution found, cost 20. Your shortest path is A, C, E, D, F, which is exactly the shortest path. So the goal here is not to be able to write this model. The goal is to see how we go about this. We write what we want. We model what it should satisfy, what the constraints are, and then we do these implementations. And we just use existing software to give us a solution. Then if we look at machine learning, it looks very different. And obviously I'm overgeneralizing. This is supervised learning in this case. But there we have to do training. So you provide many inputs and many matching outputs. And then the machine learning model, which can be a neural network, can be some kind of deep learning technique, can be anything. But essentially what it does is learns how to translate this input to the output. Then after you train the model, you're looking at, if you give it an input, what is the output? That's what the model tells you. So to give you an explicit example, pictures of cats and dogs. Training, you give the model many pictures of cats and dogs and you tell it, this is a cat, this is a dog. You train the model, and then after the model is trained, you can just give it any picture and you don't have to say whether it's a cat and a dog, and the model will figure out what it is. That's essentially how it works. So, and this is the slide that really answers the question that we had at the beginning. If you have questions about the optimization that I explained or the machine learning that I explained or about this slide, I invite you to put them in the chat now. I'll go over this slide and then I'll see if there's any questions. So the comparison. Optimization, it's based on models. You have to build this model at the beginning that defines what is feasible, what can you do, what is allowed. We do not require training. We just put in the data that we have and the optimization figures out the best way to deal with it. The solutions are always good. They satisfy the constraints. That's why we build a model. We said exactly, it has to be a path. It has to start here and there. Then the downside is sometimes that getting an answer is very slow. So these techniques work well, but like I also said at the beginning, it takes a lot of time to run them and actually get a solution. Then if we look at machine learning on the other end, it's based on data. You don't build a detailed model of what a solution looks like. You start from data. You have to train, which takes time, of course, and you need labeled data. If you get output, it doesn't always satisfy the constraints. And if you've ever used ChatGPT, you know this, right? If I ask the model, is this a cat or a dog? It might say it's a horse, or it might say, I don't know, or it might say it's a cat while it's actually a dog. It doesn't always satisfy the constraints. It doesn't always do what you expect it to do. However, it's very fast. Basically, depending on the model, like in a couple milliseconds or within a second, you can get an answer for what you put in. What is this picture? It will tell you it's a dog very quickly. Maybe wrong, maybe right. So that's the main contrast that we see. And before I move on beyond this, I want to ask Yasmina if she can take a look at the chat and see if there's any questions related to this part.
We have a couple really good questions, actually.
I expect nothing less.
Sure. So let's go ahead and start with Raima. She asks, what sort of ML models are usually used for optimization problems?
So we'll go into that, but I think it's mostly neural networks. Nowadays, often also graphical neural networks, which are just other neural networks. I think those are the most common, but more traditional ones are also used. But really, for my story, it doesn't matter. But it's a good question. Thank you.
Okay. And Norwin asks, what role does AI play in linguistics?
That's a good question. I'm going to postpone that until the end, if that's fine.
Okay, let's just make sure you remind us. And another question. Okay. Nora asks, deep learning algorithms famously use optimization algorithms like Adam. So can deep learning be used as an optimization technique or be seen as an optimization technique?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Like there has been overlap in these in techniques and these fields. Like definitely, some of the training a machine learning model can be seen as optimization. There's overlap in techniques. It's not of as big of a like black and white divide as I try to present it here, right? But you do see that these communities are often separate, and the people who are in machine learning don't necessarily see it as optimization, and it's like different communities. And what we try to do here is combine optimization and machine learning in a different way. But those connections definitely exist, and that's very true. Okay, great. With these great questions out of the way, I want to continue. I'm going to assume that it's clear here what the difference is between this optimization part and this machine learning part. And now we're going to combine them in a meaningful way. And I'll call that optimization proxies. And we're going to do that as follows. The goal is going to be to do the optimization like we did before, but do it actually faster, because the optimization worked. It was just slow. Following steps. Step 1, build your optimization model, just like you did before. Step 2, train a machine learning model to mimic what the optimization model does. So for example, in our shortest path example, we had a list of distances, and the optimization model gave us the shortest path. Now we can give that pair to the machine learning model, and we can do it again. Different distances, different path. Thank you, optimization model, give it to the machine learning. So we generate a whole bunch of those distances and paths, and then we try to get the machine learning to actually learn, if you have the distances, what would the optimization model do to turn it into paths? Say you could do this well. Now you have an optimization model that does exactly or almost exactly the same as your, sorry, you have a machine learning model that basically does the same as your optimization model. Well, then why don't you just use the machine learning model? So now if you have all the time in the world, you ask your question to the optimizer. If you don't have enough time, you just ask your question to the machine learning model, which you have trained to basically do the same thing. And that's an interesting idea, right? And it doesn't sound like it's world changing. It sounds like you could just come up with that, and it's not that difficult. So the goal here is take the optimization model, which is slow, replace it by the machine learning model, which is fast. However, there's challenges. Obviously, there's always challenges. First of all, your machine learning model might not do the right thing. Like I said, it can misclassify things. If you think about power systems, it might try to store more energy than possible. In your supply chain, it might try to send half a truck where, well, that doesn't work. You just send a truck or you don't. It may give you solutions that are too expensive. So that's difficult. Other challenges are trustworthiness. If we put these AI systems anywhere near our power grid, we have to be absolutely 1000% sure that they're going to do the right thing, right? Next, performance guarantees. Of these optimization models, we know they give the best solution, but now these machine learning models, we are not completely sure what they do. Scalability is the thing. So traditionally, machine learning models, for example, it's language recognition, or it is put in a picture and it tells you cat or dog. We're now talking about put in a whole power grid, and the output is how do you set all the generators, which is way bigger. And finally, you want to do this in a way where all your optimization techniques still work and everything combines. So we have this interesting idea where we can replace optimization with machine learning models. Hopefully it does the same thing, but quicker, but we don't have guarantees anymore. So somehow we need to deal with these things. Yes, let me just go straight into it. So that's the idea behind optimization proxies. And now I want to go back to the topics we talked about before. And I want to see, or basically I want to show you how we use these things in practice. And this is all active, ongoing research or work that was done like within the last year. This is the latest stuff. So power systems, like we said, right? Optimization has literally saved billions of dollars yearly for these power grids, as far as we can tell. The issue that they deal with now, they have uncertainty. They want to do risk analysis. They have a lot of data that they want to deal with. And these systems are just too big to optimize. How do you do this? Well, step 1 to deal with this uncertainty is just do better forecasting. So for example, if you have a lot of wind energy, you need to predict how much wind energy there's going to be. And we are actually using the latest transformer technology, which is the same stuff behind ChatGPT. We just use it for a completely different purpose to do these predictions for wind and how much wind energy there is. And if you look at this graph below, in black, you see the actual wind energy production, and then you see all the predictions. And these are predictions 24 hours in advance of how much wind there's going to be 24 hours from now, all over the country. I think you can imagine that this is a very difficult thing to predict, but we're actually doing a very good job in doing that. So doing better probabilistic forecasting, having a better understanding of what is the uncertainty, how certain am I about these predictions, is an extremely important part of this. Next up, this is probably my favorite one in here, real-time risk assessment. So what you see here is, we call it digital twin, which is a copy of a real system. So in this case, we worked with one of the power grid operators, and we read, like, I don't know, thousands of pages of documentation, and we built a computer program which is essentially a copy of the US power grid. And for some reason, they don't let you experiment on the real grid, but you can do experiments on these copies. So that's a very good tool to have. And one thing that they like to do is, because there's so much uncertainty, they want to test different scenarios, what would happen. So here in gray, you see scenario 1, 2, etc. That can be, for example, what happens if one of the generators is down? What happens if the sun starts shining? What happens if the sun doesn't start shining? Those kind of things. And the problem right now is, each of these scenarios is an optimization problem, because you have to figure out what are the optimal things to do in that scenario. Running this whole thing, we are pretty good at optimization, right? It takes about 15 minutes, which looks good, but then you realize that these decisions have to be made by human planners every 5 minutes. So you cannot check all these scenarios if you're a human planner, because it takes 15 minutes and you don't have the time. And that's exactly where optimization proxies come in. So in this case, we build optimization proxies to very quickly get solutions for these scenarios. So instead of asking the optimizer for each scenario, we ask the machine learning model for each scenario, what is going to happen? And if you do that, you can get it down from 15 minutes to 5 seconds. And you can prove, or you can show, that it's essentially the same quality. So that changes the picture. We're moving from somewhere where you had to press a button, wait a while, to somewhere where you can just run a whole bunch of analysis, like, oh, this happens. Let me see if that scenario is interesting. And then you just run 1,000 more. It's fast. So that's the kind of impact you can see from these optimization proxies. One detail that's important here is, we are not trusting the machine learning model to do the right thing. We have it make a prediction, and then we do a specific repair step that makes sure that whatever comes out of it, we do some additional steps to make the solution work, to make sure that everything is safe and everything is validated. So there is a guaranteed step here to make it work. And that's part of the science that's going on right now, is how do you actually make that repair work? Let me see how I'm of time. I think we're okay. So then we get a feasible solution. Similarly, we work with UPS, for example, in shipping, and they have very big questions like, how do we move 20 million packages every day through the system? The amount of packages changes, there's a lot of flexibility there. How do you deal with that? And very quickly, one of the questions we help them decide is, if you want to send stuff to Chicago from Atlanta, are you going to send it through St. Louis, Nashville, or Columbus, and how much in each truck, such that it's as efficient as possible? And there we do similar things. I'm going a little bit faster here. But similar, we take historical data, we use our optimization model to see what would have been smart in the past, and we use that to train a machine learning model that figures out exactly how the optimization works. And then in practice, we do something similar, where when the data of the day comes in, we ask the optimization model what it should do. We fix that solution, actually with optimization in this case, and then it gives us very quickly a solution that we can work with. And if we look at, so what this looks in practice is, the machine learning model predicts how many trucks you need, and this might be 2.5, for example. And then we figure out if you need 2 trucks or three trucks. Yeah. Turns out if you do this, like 98% of the time it works. The only time that it doesn't work, you can still use the old thing. You can have your planners figure it out, or you can have the old optimization. But 98% of the time this works. And what you see here, if you look at the TS column, the marked ones, first it took us an hour to get a solution. And after that point, we got impatient and we just told the solver to stop. And right now we can get a solution of similar quality 98% of the time in like 2 seconds. So that puts you in a position where human planners can actually play with these numbers and try different things and get suggestions very, very, very quickly. So that's really the power of combining these two concepts. I'm going to skip this one, but we also work with Intel on supply chain stuff. Similar things. They want quickly to have answers to if things change, what will happen. So I'm going to recap that here, and then I'm going to put everybody to work. So the tools I told you about, first of all, optimization proxies. Really, the main idea is to replace an optimization model with a machine learning model that you can use if you don't have enough time. I gave you some examples how that works in risk management, checking scenarios, if you want fast solutions, if you want to do sensitivity analysis. We talked about better forecasting. So some of the AI techniques really help us to make better predictions at a larger scale that are way more efficient and better than before. And I briefly mentioned digital twins, which is where you basically make a digital copy of a real system. So for example, the power grid or the UPS network or the Intel supply chain, so that you have something to do research on without anything going wrong in the real world. So I'm going to leave it there. I want to go to the breakouts, and if we have time after that, we can do some more questions. Yes, let's do that for time reasons. Let's go to the breakouts.
Okay, sounds great. Everyone, we're going to go through the same process. I am going to begin our breakout rooms, and once you get that notification, just go ahead and join.
Let me briefly introduce the prompt, and then you can do that, Jasmina. Thank you.
Of course.
So I think this one is fun. Prepare a research pitch. Basically, prepare a pitch for a new research project to make a difference with AI and optimization. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in these breakout rooms. You're going to be in the room, and together with everybody, you pick an area for which you think that AI and optimization and the tools you saw today can make a difference. You discuss, you try to find a topic, and then one person of your group, so you have to pick somebody, when we come back, can do a 1-minute pitch of this research project. You can think about things we discussed today. You can look at the engineering grand challenges if you need more motivation, or just anything else, anything you can think AI makes a difference. I want to invite you to, in your pitch, address the same questions that you asked our researchers. What is the topic? Why does it matter? What kind of techniques do you use? And bonus points if you can use some of the techniques we talked about today, so optimization proxies, forecasting, digital twins. But if there's other techniques you're more interested in, you can pitch those as well, of course. I think an important one is, what kind of training do you need? Do you just need AI researchers, or are there others that are involved to make this work? So let's see how we do with time. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do this. I'll give you one example, and then Jasmina will put you on the rooms, and we'll get 10 minutes to prepare. So my example pitch. Thank you, research board. Today I'm pitching a project called AI and optimization for food production. As we all know, there's too little food in the world, and doing more efficient food production is extremely important, and we want to use AI and optimization to do that. What we propose is make a digital twin of plants. So we're going to work with biologists to understand plants and have a digital copy of a plant. Then when we have that, we're going to try to optimize these systems and really figure out what nutrients do they need, how much sun do they need. We're not going to work just with AI scientists, but we're also going to work with biologists to help us understand these systems, and with farmers so that we can actually see what is important and how we can make products that they can benefit from. Thank you for listening to my pitch. Okay, so that's my example pitch. But any topic, any technique, right? Have fun with this. 10 minutes. Good luck. See you back in 10.
Okay, rooms are opening up, and we are going to pause the recording again. Okay, welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back, and thank you all for participating. I know this was a very difficult prompt, but I heard people asking for more time. I heard some good discussion going on. So I'm very excited to see if anybody was able to put together a pitch. I'll put back on the screen some of the questions that we were interested in. There we go. And I'm going to ask Rosemary first if you had anybody in your group who wanted to do a pitch.
Yes, we did have.
Oh yeah, we need to unmute these people. So give us a second there to make it work.
I'm trying to find him. If he can raise his hand, I'm going through all the.
Okay, and everybody else also like unmute your representatives in the meantime.
There, you should have the floor now.
You go ahead.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Thank you. This is Shoykot Mitra. We've decided that we may work on the optimization process in the delivery of RMG sector. Well, in RMG sector, the people manually samples the lots from the shipment and detects if they are deliverable or not. So we can develop some AI or optimization technique for automating that. We can take the photos of the shipment, the stitches, and detect stitches are okay or not from the images, and we can take sensor samples from the clothes. If the GSM is okay or not. We can all do that from AI readings, right?
Great, thank you so much. I love the use of AI there, and I think that's a really good application where you can make a difference. Nice work, you and the team.
Thank you.
Then next up, I want to ask Rabab if you were able to, if anybody in your team wants to present a pitch.
Yes, I think Fahim is going to present, and I'm asking you to unmute now. So hopefully you're able to do this.
Go for it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Rabab, for choosing me, and I'm delivering our pitch. We talked about a lot of different topics, and we finally chose the topic of earthquake. And as we know that there are no predictive model to predict where an earthquake might happen next time. And so if we could use the data from the last 10 or 20 years, like the data of seismic activity or where earthquake happened in the past time, and what was their depth and the frequencies, then we might able to predict where and when an earthquake might happen next time, at least the bigger ones. So that might be very helpful for the earthquake prediction.
Great, nice pitch. Actually, we work with some. I've met some researchers who work on things like that, and one of the interesting things too is that there's physical models that we have but are very expensive to run. So AI could make a big difference. Nice topic. Well done.
Thank you.
Then next up, I'm going to ask if Shikar's group wants to pitch anything.
Yeah, I think Sadia will be representing. Sadia, if you can unmute. Yeah, I think she's ready.
Hello.
Or-
Am I audible?
You are?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me the chance to present. I'm Sadia from Bangladesh. So the topic we have discussed is about finding a perfect route for the drivers in the traffic congested areas like my country. So we can incorporate AI powered systems to solve this problem and assign a suitable route in the peak hours. We will take the datas of historical datas, weather conditions, and we will try to identify the reasons of the traffic at the specific area the driver want to go from where to another place. So then we will find out our system will find out the possible routes by analyzing the historical data and the real-time data we will collect from the device we will put to the system, and after analyzing, we will give them a perfect route, suitable routes for the specific time they are moving to one place to another. That was the things we have discussed actually.
Great, thank you so much. And I like that, like you know, right? I work in transportation, so this is close to my heart. And I like that you really focused on a problem that's specific to your area, and that makes a lot of sense. You take things like weather into account, which are relevant in your area. So I like that a lot. Thank you so much, and your team, obviously. Then last but not least, Jungye, anybody in your team who wants to do a pitch?
We had two very promising ideas, I think. But I think it's Sohan. I hope I'm not butchering your name. Sohan, Sohan. He had an idea about inventory routing. Would you like to share?
Yes. Hello everyone. I'm Sean from Bangladesh. Today I want to represent a research piece from my team. Our topic is about inventory routing problem. So the problem is about finding the optimal inventory and then delivering the goods using the optimal route. So we want to incorporate this problem using AI and optimization. First, we want to create a digital twins of the full manufacturing system. Using these twins, we want to forecast, or we want to create the orders or other stuff. Then after forecasting, we want to share those data to produce how we could optimize the route, or if we would find the efficient route. So finding the optimal route, we can also use the optimization proxies, which can be helpful for finding those routes very quickly. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, nice. Thank you. This is inventory routing is a big topic. I was at a workshop last week and they were actually talking about that, but not in the context like of AI like you and your team discussed. So great work. I think that's all the pitches. Thank you all so much for participating. I hope you enjoyed talking about these kind of topics and exploring what could possibly be done, because we have a lot of opportunities coming up to do these kind of things. We're over time already, so I'm going to wrap up quickly. If you have a burning question, feel free to just send it to me by email. I'll get back to you, and I'm sure some of the research team today is happy to answer some of your questions as well. I'll make sure we get contact information to you. If I can wrap up quickly, well, the goals for today. Did we reach those? I'm going to leave that up to you, but tell us in the survey, right? Get to know AI4OPT and the researchers, understand what kind of work they do. Really understand how AI and optimization are used to address big challenges in energy, supply chains, manufacturing. Explain this concept of optimization proxies, which is very new and I think is going to be very big in AI for engineering. And really analyze these opportunities and challenges for AI and engineering applications. And if I see the pitches that you came up with in just a couple minutes after just learning from this, I think we made a good progress there. So thank you for participating. Thank you to HerWILL team for inviting us to be here today and making it work in practice. And last but not least, I want to invite my amazing team who are here today as well. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to give it back to Yasmina.
Wow. All right. Thank you so much. That was great. Everyone, we are dropping a feedback form into the chat. I hope you guys, or I greatly encourage you guys to interact with it. We want to hear about how you felt during today's lesson. We want to know how you felt about the content, and your response really does matter to us. It's taken into high regard. Besides that, how does everyone feel? You can respond in the chat. Okay, thank you for the claps and stuff. All right. Excellent. Thank you to those responding in the chat. I'm glad you guys enjoyed our session. Once again, Deep thanks to Kevin and his amazing team over at Georgia Tech and the AI Institute for Optimization. We're so thankful to have them on our team. And this is just a start to an amazing workshop series. We have wonderful professors and their teams joining us from now until mid-February. So I encourage you all to join into our sessions as they come. Besides that, thank you again, Kevin. Thank you again to your amazing team. Everyone, please respond to our feedback form. Besides that, we're all finished for today's session. If you filled out your feedback, you can go ahead.
Thank you so
Hello,
much, everybody.
Yasmina.
Hi,
Can I, hi, Kevin. So can I just take few seconds from you? So we're gonna take a screenshot with all of your faces, whoever participated this session. So I would request all of you to turn on your camera and look at the camera so that everyone's face is on point. Yes.
Okay, everyone, if we could all just turn our cameras on and then smile into the camera, it would really mean a lot to us.
Okay, so I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, and just look at the camera and freeze for a while because there are a few pages, so I have to go different pages. So just freeze for a while. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everyone. Once you fill out the feedback form, that's all you need. And good night, everyone. Thank you for joining. You're all free to go. Goodbye, everyone.